Anyway, let's move into now the state of affairs in the United States of America. And perhaps the stupidest version of events, the Trump administration, turns out, were texting on a group chat about how they were going to bomb Yemen. And they accidentally added The Atlantic's very own Jeffrey Goldberg into the group chat. Now, it's a suspicious set of circumstances considering who Jeffrey Goldberg is and the roles that Jeffrey Goldberg has played. I don't know if it's like literally an accident or they deliberately did this, but because they're so stupid, I assume it was a happy accident for them. Jeffrey Goldberg is a former IDF prison guard, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, and also has run cover for American foreign policy that, justified the invasion of Iraq through channeling the lies, repeating the lies that the American State Department was telling at the time. Jeffrey Goldberg has also offered very positive pieces to Mohammed bin Salman at the time when he was doing the charm offensive. Actually, I think he literally coined the term charm offensive. He's a big-time MBS advocate. But yeah, they had a Signal group chat, and I guess they accidentally added the wrong Jeffrey IDF onto the Signal group chat. What's funny to me about the story is that The Atlantic is so obviously a core part of the pro-war propaganda apparatus that someone thought of adding the editor-in-chief to a Pentagon group chat. He thinks this makes the Trump admin look bad. I think it makes The Atlantic look bad too. Yes. I think so as well. I think Nathan J. Robinson cooked here. I think that's precisely the reason why Jeffrey was accidentally added into the group chat. I don't know if this was a true accident. But we have some of the conversations that took place, even though The Atlantic was too cowardly to reveal it, as far as I understand. They were too cowardly to reveal all of them. Sorry. All of the group chat text messages. Here are some of them. JD Vance, at Pete Hegseth. If you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do upfront to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Pete Hegseth responds, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's, in all caps, pathetic. But Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good as a time as any given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. SM says, as I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement, e.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. I guess that's Stephen Miller who's saying that. Pete Hegseth, agree. It's, dude, once again, I find it so strange when this administration, due to its sheer incompetence or lack of interest in sheltering you from the truth because they have a fuck you gonna do about it attitude about it all, have revealed America's intentions that leftists like myself talk about all the time, and then everybody yells at me and says, I'm a conspiracy theorist. It's hilarious that this has happened virtually every week. Virtually every week since the beginning of this admin, where Trump will just come out and straight up be like, Saudi oil, we got to protect it. That's why while we strike Yemen, we got to extract some funds, right? Or even in text messages like this, they're just so incompetent. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is truly an accident, but here are some more chat logs. News: Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg reports that senior Trump administration officials mistakenly added into a single Signal group chat where they deliberated on strikes against the Houthis in Yemen. National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes says that the text chain appears to be authentic. The group discussed planning for the bombings, current intelligence assessments, and debated whether to launch the military action. The chat, called Houthi PC Small Group, and was started by Mike Waltz, National Security Advisor, and included 18 members of the Principals Committee, the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, Secretary of State, Stephen Witkoff, the GOAT, Director of National Intelligence, CIA Director, and Trump's Chief of Staff. The debate over the bombings includes VP Vance arguing against striking, saying only 3% of trade passes through the Red Sea. Ratcliffe, the CIA director, weighing in story. Hegseth arguing that waiting a month wouldn't change anything. Goldberg says he didn't realize the chat was real until the bombings began on March 15th. Mike Waltz celebrated in the chat with multiple emojis. They also said, excellent, good start, Mike Waltz. Fist, American flag, fire emoji. Good job, Pete, and your team. The team in MAL did a great job as well. Great work, all. Powerful start. What's the argument for doing this on purpose? I get not trusting this journalist, but this text chain seems like almost exclusively a bad look for them. Occam's razor here seems pretty clearly to be they're fucking morons. I mean, because the text, you want to know why? Because the text messages kind of reveal that they are very professional and cordial with one another, and that there's like internal back and forth on this. You know what I mean? Like they were having like serious conversations when we know that these are not so serious people. And also, there's no such thing as a bad look for this administration. You can only shame someone who has the capability of being shamed. If a person does not have the capability of shame, then you can't shame them. Does that make sense? Do you understand? It's kind of like the Pete Hegseth phenomena, right? Back in the day, the Department of National Intelligence operators would actively go, and they still do this, would actively go to the friends and family members, neighbors of people that are getting security clearances. The reason for why they would do this and do like a massive assessment, there's an entire agency dedicated to making sure that the people that are being elevated, the people that have top security clearance status, are actually not open to compromise, open to blackmail, open to be extorted. They would look through your finances. If you have a lot of gambling debt, for example, that creates an opportunity for a foreign actor to exploit that. You have financial issues, then someone can, you're more malleable. Someone can come in and say, oh, we're going to clear your gambling debt if you slide us some USBs with some top secret intelligence, right? That obviously doesn't matter. Look at Brett Kavanaugh. He is a Supreme Court of the United States justice now. But beyond that, they would look at whether or not you were a drunk, whether or not you had, done rapes, for example. The reason why I'm using those two reasons, the reason why I'm bringing up those two factors here is because Pete Hegseth has done both. He is both an alcoholic and he has done rapes. But there is no reason to fear that Pete Hegseth could ever be blackmailed because everybody knows that. And the administration says, what the fuck are you going to do about it? So it's no longer a weakness if your crimes are in full display and you are unblackmailable. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I mean? That's how it is.
This just in, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, says he was accidentally texted war plans.
Yeah, we literally just received this piece from The Atlantic, and in it, Goldberg writes, U.S. national security leaders included me in a group chat about upcoming military strikes in Yemen. I didn't think it could be real. Then the bombs started falling. CNN's Alex Marquardt joins us now live. And Alex, this piece came out literally in the last few minutes. I haven't been able to read through all of it, but this seems like something out of a farce, like out of a comedy.
This is Burn Notice. We are simultaneously Idiocracy, but also Burn Notice at the same time. The Burn Notice was a documentary to begin with, though. So, yeah.
It's just stunning on so many different levels. And I understand why Goldberg didn't believe it was real, because it is just shocking in several different ways. Goldberg was added to a Signal chat with some of the most senior national security members of the Trump administration. Signal is a messaging app that is encrypted, probably why these officials thought that they could have a discreet conversation on there. But on it, in this chat that Goldberg was a witness to, they talk about the planning for the recent bombing of the Houthis that started on March 15th. They talk about current intelligence assessments. There's a full-on debate among these officials about whether they should carry out this bombing of the Houthis. And these are conversations that could be in violation of the Espionage Act. Now, this group was started, it looks like, by the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who called it the Houthi PC Small Group. PC refers to Principals Committee. The principals in the administration are the senior-most officials. And among that group of senior officials, you have the National Security Advisor, the Vice President, the Secretary of Defense and of State.
Well, we'll know it's real if they find a reason to arrest Goldberg. They're never... Are you kidding me? That would be crazy. First of all, why? What? You think the guy who is in charge of the Atlantic, who is a former Israeli occupying force concentration camp guard, who literally works at the behest of the State Department, is going to get arrested for this? What are you, crazy? I mean, I'm sure that they'll go after members of the press. They certainly will. But I don't think they're going to start with the Atlantic.
The director of national intelligence, the CIA director, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, the chief of staff to President Trump, and the list goes on. There are 18 of them. So there's this debate over whether the U.S. should go through with this bombing of the Houthis. Vice President Vance is actually arguing against it, saying that just 3% of trade goes through the Red Sea, which is where the ships have been targeted by the Houthis. Ratcliffe, the CIA director, he chimes in with current intelligence assessments that may be related to intelligence operations that are ongoing. Goldberg does not print that because, of course, that, among so many other details in this, are so highly classified. Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, he chimes in saying that waiting a few weeks or a month wouldn't fundamentally change the calculus. And he notes, interestingly, that if this leaks, we look indecisive. Of course, it would eventually leak. Now, keep in mind, as they're having this discussion, Goldberg is watching all of this unfold, and he doesn't know, again, whether it's real, but he would quickly learn that it was. On the morning of March 15th, which is the day the bombings began, Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, posted a team update at 11:44 in the morning saying the bombings were about to start 2 hours later. And in that message to this large group, again, including Goldberg, he posted operational details about these strikes that were about to happen, information about targets, about weapons, and the attack sequencing. 2 hours later, the strikes started. Goldberg looked up on Twitter, and he started to see explosions happening in Yemen, and that's when he knew it was true. And that's when these officials essentially started celebrating. You have John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, saying, "A good start." Mike Waltz, this national security advisor, responds with several emojis, as does Steve Witkoff, with two hands praying, a flexed bicep, and two American flags. So everyone approving of what just happened and celebrating. The National Security Council has not pushed back on this at all. They said that this chain was in fact real. Brian Hughes, the National Security Council spokesman, says this does appear to be an authentic message chain. They are looking into how and someone was inadvertently added, how Goldberg was added to this chain, and he tries to spin it as a demonstration of the deep and thoughtful policy coordination between senior officials. So no pushback from the White House in terms of the authenticity of this. But again, this may violate the Espionage Act. Jeffrey Goldberg and his colleague Shane Harris, who's an intelligence reporter, spoke with several lawyers who say that it may have violated the provisions that govern the handling of national defense information. Bottom line, they say,
to put it on Signal,
they should not have established a Signal chat in the first place, is their conclusion, which is kind of obvious. And then the kicker of this whole piece is, as Hegseth is describing how this is going to unfold and what is going to happen, he says, we are currently clean on OPSEC, which is operational security. Clearly, they were not clean because they included a journalist in this conversation on Signal.
Okay, who was the JG who was missing, who should have been part of the conversation?
We don't know why Waltz initially reached out to Jeffrey Goldberg and added him as a contact, and then eventually added him to the group. You're absolutely right. They probably thought they were adding someone else from within the administration who had a similar name. Why this mistake happened is just the first of a very long list of questions.
Wow.
Alex Marquardt, thank you so much for bringing us this reporting. Let's talk more about this with former Defense Secretary and former CIA. Secretary, I'm reading the piece as we speak, and it's interesting because Goldberg writes that he had very strong doubts that this text group was real. I could not believe that the national security leadership of the United States would communicate on Signal about imminent war plans. I also could not believe that the national security advisor to the president would be so reckless, he writes, as to include the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in such discussions with senior U.S. officials. Secretary, what's your reaction to this reporting?
Well, it's obviously a very serious mistake on the part of whoever included Goldberg in this highly classified chain of command messaging that went on that involved war plans. To have had somebody from the Atlantic on that chain, without question, was a serious mistake. And I hope the White House takes this seriously, because the last thing you want to do when you're talking about war.
I hope they don't, because honestly, I love the incompetence. I hope they don't take it seriously, and I hope that they keep doing this. I hope that they keep accidentally adding journalists, and real journalists, not Goldberg, who is a fake journalist, but simply a stenographer for the State Department. But instead they have like real journalists on there, you know, that'd be sick. Of course, that'll never happen, because I don't think that any real journalist is going to be a phone number. I have a suspicion that they meant to include Deputy Assistant to the President and Deputy Homeland Security Advisor Joshua Geltzer. Makes you wonder whether or not that it was done intentionally, because that level of incompetence is incomprehensible. It's a very weird situation, because the administration is that fucking stupid. I mean, dude, Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor. He's a weekend host, and now he is in charge of the DOD. Like it's weird, because on the one hand, I'm like, whoa, was this a clever way to just like to do a show of force? Because everything that you got from the leak itself is not all that surprising. Like it's stuff that you imagine them saying in public. So I look at it and I think to myself, like, when a leak like this happens, like who's doing the leaking is important. Is it a contentious adversarial reporter, or is it someone who has always played the role of going along with the American State Department's interests? And also, what information, more importantly than that, what information did we get out of this leak? And the information that we got out of this leak is just like, you know, JD Vance being like, yeah, fuck Europe. Which is, you know, maybe we shouldn't actually do this. They're debating being an isolationist, right? While also talking about how much they despise that Europeans are freeloaders of American security. Like that in and of itself is stuff that you would, that is something that you would see in public. Yeah, Lolo is joking here. In my opinion, not enough slurs for it to be an unintentional leak. I know their asses are sending horrible gifts too. I'm not even joking. This is a joke, but I think this is also real. Pete Hegseth admits the Iran-funded Houthis narrative is a made-up talking point to sell the bombing campaign to the average feeble American John Doe. Fantastic. At 8:27, a message arrived from Pete Hegseth account. VP, I understand your concerns and I fully support you raising with POTUS. Important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused on 1, Biden failed, 2, Iran funded. I will say I don't hate that they're so incompetent that we don't have to do any sort of serious journalism to figure out like what kind of focus group testing the former Vice President Dick Cheney had to do in order to sell the war in Iraq to the American population, as we found out after the fact. They just kind of reveal it voluntarily. They're like, yeah, Americans are stupid. How do we sell them another bombing campaign? That's right. We tell them, oh, it's Iran. They don't know who the Houthis are, but they're not going to have a lot of appetite for bombing yet another random country. So we'll just say it was Biden's failure. Any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. Oh my God. Tulsi Gabbard is so interesting to me as the DNI. Like, this is her job now, right? The head of serving as the 8th director of national intelligence, right? Tulsi Gabbard is like pro Edward Snowden, but also simultaneously is saying it's so interesting. Interesting stuff.
Our plans is to have a serious leak like this that could undermine the war plans, but also jeopardize lives. So I hope they take this seriously.
What were you saying? Ain't no way he gets arrested? I doubt it. But I'd be shocked that they arrest him. They arrest an ally to the State Department for their own personal incompetence. Maybe. The Trump administration is so stupid that who knows, you know?
What would that look like, Secretary?
I think they would have to do a full investigation as to who included this name on that chain involving the highest officials in national security, from the president to the vice president to a secretary of defense, et cetera. How the name of a journalist was added to that list, this is just a serious blunder, and not only could violate the espionage laws, but more importantly, can undermine our national security. That's probably the greater problem, is that it reveals our most secret war plans that require that we protect.
How is it a secret? Like, every administration has bombed Yemen. Every single one. Democrat, Republican, every single one. It's not a secret. It's an expectation. Like, oh man, we got to bomb Yemen again. Oh, I'm shocked. What a shocking display. Wow, Trump really changed the trajectory of American foreign policy by doing the thing that Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Trump did last time he was in office. Interesting. America, it's like having a group chat being like, hey guys, we should give $7 trillion to Israel. And then people being like, wow, this is a real change of pace. They're leaking state secrets out here. I can't believe it. This is so different than the previous administration and the administration prior and the administration prior and the administration prior. Another supply of bombs to Israel. Wow.
Protect that information in order to be able to conduct what is obviously a serious operation of war.
To that point, Secretary, I wonder what could have happened here if it wasn't Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief at The Atlantic, who received this and decided to publish this story. If it had been someone else on the contact list that was added to the signal chat, what would have been a worst-case scenario that would have put national security at risk?
Well, the worst-case scenario, I mean, thankfully, Jeffrey Goldberg just assumed that this was either a joke or some kind of mistake and obviously didn't pay attention. But somebody who would have the United States as an adversary could reveal this information immediately to the Houthis in Yemen that they...
Dude, I can't. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm just envisioning a future where Jeffrey Goldberg is arrested, and it's so awesome. Which is part of the reason why it won't happen. Like, it's so incredible. Oh my God. It's great. I can't believe that this would be the one time where on principle I'm against this move, but goddamn do I enjoy the show, you know? For once, Donald Trump offers an olive branch to those who definitely want to see Jeffrey Goldberg arrested.
They were about to be attacked, and they in turn could have responded and attacked U.S. facilities in the Red Sea, causing casualties of our troops and of our men and women in uniform. So if it were somebody who did not have the United States' national security interests at heart, but rather had the interests of our adversaries.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry. Thank God Goldberg has the United States national security interests at heart.
He could have seriously disrupted these war plans.
I wonder what you make of the administration's response, framing this, not denying the story, but framing this as an example of a thorough policy discussion, a thorough discussion about how to approach policy.
What's Fox News saying about this? Are you ready? I haven't seen what Fox News' response is, but I will tell you. One, the committee obviously kept their responses incredibly professional. As you can see, this is the most glorious committee that anyone has ever seen. It's so obvious that they are brave, brilliant, and have the Americans' interests at heart. Also, Goldberg should go to prison for even revealing this information instead of politely saying, I'm sorry, and seeing himself out of this chat while the real patriots were discussing bombing Yemen. Okay, that is 100% what the Republican take is going to be. And people are already linking it. Let's take a look. Let's see if I got it 100. Let's see. Let's see if I pre-watched it.
Story today out of The Atlantic, where their editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg has reported that he was accidentally sent sensitive information about military strikes in Yemen. The messages come from 18 national security officials. They were sent through the encryption app Signal, and there are indications that they appear to be authentic. I think there are two takeaways from this story as of what we know.
Wow. Let's see what the two takeaways from this story are.
Today. One, it is incredibly concerning that sensitive information would be sent with a journalist included in the thread. We can speculate, and there is reasonable, fair expectation that somebody like Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally included under his initials, JG, when who was meant to be included was a trade chief, Jameson Greer. But if it was accidental, and we'll wait to see if this was accidental, it is incredibly concerning that this information would be shared over the Signal app with the journalist included. But the bigger takeaway for me is it's an insight, a transparent insight into the thought process and dialogue of our national leaders. If you look at the actual content of what was reported, if you look at how they discuss potential strikes on Houthis in Yemen, what you will see is dialogue between Vice President J.D. Vance.
I told you, dude. There you go. There you go. Oh, wow. Shocking that the state propaganda apparatus Fox News is saying, well, the dialogue here is fantastic. I mean, as you can tell, these are our glorious leaders are at work and they're doing discourse. They're doing dialogue. They're handling themselves in the utmost professional manner.
Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Stephen Miller, Tulsi Gabbard, and many more in a very collaborative, open, honest, team-based attempt to...
You know what's funny? I got down the individual talking points, okay? I got down the individual talking points. Oh, my God.
come to the right decision after years of secrecy and incompetence. If you read the content of these messages, I think you'll come away proud that these are the leaders making these decisions. And
oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, come on. It's not even a fucking here, let's see what this one is. This is another one that you guys sent me.
Now, I would think that there probably are worse people that you could text your secret plans to. But it appears that Goldberg has acted responsibly here in writing this article. And while he outs a lot of the process of what happened, he did not specifically publish.
Yeah, this is what I mean. He didn't like the fact that he was included is embarrassing enough for the administration. But like the way he navigated this was this story made the administration look good. It gave him props for being here. Okay. It gave him props for being a part of that conversation. And he gets to present himself as a journalist. But also, he didn't like actually embarrass them.
Publish the war plans as they apparently were transmitted to him by Pete Hegseth the morning of the attacks against the Houthis.
Okay.
Now,
yeah, he is pro State Department through and through. Like he's not a real journalist. He's a stenographer. Are you seriously suggesting that this administration has the forethought to plan this in advance? No, I don't. It's a really interesting situation because like they're so incompetent and so stupid that they could have accidentally done that. I mean, I'm serious. Like I get it. I totally understand why this could be like this is a situation that could have gone a lot worse for the administration, and it was a happy mistake that they went with someone who is so pro Trump regime and just so pro Trump State Department. And Trump wasn't on the call. Like, he wasn't on the Signal group chat. I don't think he knows how to fucking operate Signal. Trump on the report at cabinet officials were discussing sensitive materials on Signal. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time.
The story in the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic reporter for that. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate on sensitive materials and
having to do with what? Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
The Houthis? You mean the attack on the Houthis?
Correct.
Well, it couldn't have been very effective because the attack was very effective. I can tell you that. I don't know anything about it.
So effective. Isn't it damning that Goldberg's in the Trump admin Signal contacts? No, it's not. It's obvious. I mean, yeah, it is damning for Goldberg as much as it is damning for the administration, but it's also not surprising at all. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that it's not even remotely shocking that someone like Goldberg would get invited to the Signal group chat on accident because they have his number. Part of my skepticism over the idea that Goldberg was out of the chat by accident. If you're pro-Trump, all the people involved are shown as concentrated and dedicated to fighting Yemen and as saying the same things in public as they do in private. That's what I mean, exactly. Anyone who's concerned with national security by doing all this is in a Signal chat is a non-entity to the current Republican establishment. Everyone of influence with that opinion was purged years ago. It doesn't make him look bad at all. It doesn't make these guys look bad at all. It makes them look like they're serious professionals. They're consummate professionals engaging in professional conduct and dialogue, basically saying the same things that they would be saying off camera, but also saying the same things that they'd be saying on camera. And the very fact that it's like Goldberg that was the person who was added to the conversation makes me feel like it makes me feel like I just don't think that they have foresight. They don't have enough foresight to do this deliberately. But also, something about it doesn't sit right.
Policy toward the Houthis.
Well, look, this is a chain of command. It's provided so that our top officials can have that conversation as to whether or not.
I think people would be more angered that they were not secure enough. Yeah, I'm not angry. I don't care. I want them to be a leaky faucet. I don't give a shit about national security like that. Are you crazy? No. I want them to have all journalists. Put some real journalists in those fucking group chats. You kidding me? You think I care? You think I give a shit about the American war plans being disrupted by the most incompetent administration of all time? No, I don't. I think it's great. It's awesome. The only thing that I'm upset about is that it was Goldberg that was CC'd. Yeah, they should CC me in it, dude. Put me on the fucking group chats.
To conduct these war plans. So that there's no question this is legitimate. But what they're not paying attention to is that you've included somebody on the outside who has no business knowing about this information. There was a mistake here. Somebody on the Atlantic.
Like, of course, Leon Panetta is going to be mad because he does care about the incompetence. But he's the defense secretary. No shit, he's going to be mad. I'm not the defense secretary. I have an antagonistic opinion towards the American State Department and the American intelligence and American empire in general. So for that reason, I'm like, great. Yeah, keep being incompetent. Who gives a shit?
Got the most sensitive emails you can imagine at the federal level. That is a serious blunder. It has to be investigated, and somebody, frankly, needs to get fired.
Who do you think that is, sir?
Whoever put that chain together.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. President, your reaction to the story.
We just watched this. So I want to see. I want to see what they this is the I wish that they just like leaked all of them, like all of the text messages. I think it's silly that he didn't do that. And that's how you know he's not a real journalist. Does that make sense? This person, ex Wall Street Journal, Marketplace and Guardian reporter, doesn't believe that the official narrative is that this was leaked, or not leaked, sorry. The official narrative that this was accidentally conducted. Let's hear what she had to say. As a longtime fan of Signal, though, seeing that our nation's premier foreign policy dipshits use it to plot their half-assed military plans is some kind of validation, I guess. Anyway, every leak is intentional. It's obviously not an accident to add a raging Zionist former Israeli prison guard to the "Here's How We Kill Israel's Enemies" group chat. BRB, accidentally adding the nation's biggest loudmouth pro-Israel former IDF prison guard with a media empire to his disposal of the neocon group chat, bragging about using our power and violence against a country blocking Israeli ships. By the way, all our Republican pro-Israel donors have been complaining we're not doing enough for them. Ignore that part, though. Yeah, this is the one, like, I understand the skepticism here, because that was my initial assessment as well. Because every single message here unironically reads like a CPAC talking point. It's written like a press release or a CPAC speech. I'm begging journalists to question the leak narrative. It's obviously intentional for public consumption. Like, it's interesting that there are very little slurs, very little gifs, jokingly, but also not joking, really. I think like in a real group chat, this would be. In a real group chat, I think there would be a lot more open discourse about how they're gonna kill these dogs or whatever. Do you know how hard it is to add someone to a Signal group chat? It's highly intentional. It requires a couple screens of approval, and everyone in the chat can see when someone's added. If anyone is added or even changes their display name on Signal, the entire chat gets a notification. Additionally, all the messages before the person's addition are usually invisible to them. There's literally no way to add someone accidentally to a Signal group chat, and there's no way he can see messages he wasn't meant to see because they had to have been added after the notification he joined. This is what you see, what the entire group sees when someone is added to a Signal group chat. Yeah, but I think that was in the beginning. I think they just like set up the PC group chat with Goldberg in it. There are multiple barriers to inviting someone to a Signal group chat, and none of them are plausibly accidental or even secret. There are emails, invites, confirmations. I think in terms of like plausible explanation for this being accidental is that his name was like JG. His Signal name is JG, and they accidentally added the wrong JG. But because there's so much that was revealed from it that seems like a PR move to tell like the pro-Israel lobby, like, see, these are the considerations that we are making. No, not Jonathan Greenblatt chatter. Come on. No, the heads of the State Department are not going to add the president of the Anti-Defamation League into a conversation about bombing Yemen. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller proposes to extract economic gain from both Egypt and the EU if U.S. succeeds in opening the Red Sea by force. National Security Advisor Michael Wallace had previously proposed that Europe should foot the bill entirely. Account label P. Hegseth posts a team update. I will not quote this from this update or from certain other subsequent texts. The information contained in them, if they had been read by an adversary of the United States, could conceivably have been used to harm American military intelligence personnel, particularly in the broader Middle East, Central Command's area of responsibility. What I will say, in order to illustrate the shocking recklessness of the Signal conversation, is that Hegseth posts contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing. Oh, this is bullshit, like a lottery employee winning the lottery. Yeah. I don't know.